Hi there. I'm so glad you're here. Here's what you'll gain by listening to the very last second of this conversation with Naomi Tolentino Miranda. Through my conversation with Naomi, you'll learn why addressing chronic absenteeism requires a shift from punitive approaches to individualized, trauma informed strategies that involve understanding each student's unique barriers, empowering caregiver voices, and creating welcoming school environments where families feel safe sharing their challenges. You'll leave the conversation with understanding the why behind each student's absence is crucial, why school connectedness is fundamental, and how data driven approaches may reveal hidden patterns. Stay with us. I'm so happy to have you join our conversation today. This is Solutions Coaching and Teaching Strategies, the podcast that extends education beyond the classroom. A show that offers educators and caregivers strategies to try right away and ensure every student receives the inspiration and support they need to thrive. I am Olivia Wall, and I am so happy to welcome my guest today, Naomi Tolentino Miranda. Let me tell you a little bit about Naomi. Naomi serves as the coordinator of student support programs with Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools, Attend to Achieve, and prevention programs. Naomi, I reached out to you after learning about your crusade against chronic absenteeism. You are
Woo!
amazing. I read an Education Week piece by Evie Blad, and it highlighted you and your work. It is called When Leaders Plan to Cut Chronic Absenteeism One Student at a Time. This is an issue we are facing. It was accentuated significantly after COVID, or COVID and beyond. I know some families now consider taking vacation on off times of the year, like convenient is one extreme. But we're going to dig into the real issue of chronic absenteeism that you have been studying. You have research backed approaches to this that are working. And that's why I drove you crazy to be a guest on this podcast, and you're so gracious with your time. Um, so let's start off. What research or researcher do you lean on often in your role?
Absolutely. And thank you, Olivia, for having me. Such an honor. I will say, coming from the classroom, I've been pushed to learn about chronic absenteeism. And so it's been a learning curve for me, right? Learning about the issue and one of the key things that I've been doing in my learning journey has been looking for the experts on the topic. Right. So I remember it was yesterday. I attended a conference where attendance work was presenting for our Hedy Shan, their executive director of attendance work. She was actually talking about chronic absenteeism. This is the first time ever that I've heard chronic absenteeism. Our district, we talk about attendance, we talk about average daily attendance, but I never look at chronic absenteeism as we focus a lot on attendance and truancy. So when Hedy Shane was talking about chronic absenteeism, he has a strong partnership with Dr. Bob. We call him Dr. Bob. I believe his full name is Robert Balfan. He has a partnership with the Institute of Educational Science. And he and attendance work a lot on talking about how do we prevent missed opportunity, what is chronic absenteeism. But then they talk a lot about how do we collectively create action to address chronic absenteeism with this idea that it is a whole child approach, right? And it's a collective. It's not just about being in school. It's about social and emotional learning. It's about trauma informed. It's about parent engagement. It's about culture and climate. So it's about everything that really impacts chronic absenteeism. So Dr. Bob have a few um, research around addressing chronic absenteeism. And I think one of the biggest one that I love is about school connectedness, right? And that idea that when the students and the parents feel connected to school, they're more likely to come to school. So that had been kind of like what has been driving in our side. Well, we don't talk about that in our district. We're looking at truancy. We're looking at when kids are um, not here. So that idea of school connectedness really like resonated. And we start digging on like, so what does that look like for us at the school district, right?
Yeah.
As a district at that time, we were also starting to implement our trauma informed framework
Okay.
in our district. So we were like, but this is exactly what he's talking. He's talking about trauma informed, he's talking about social emotional learning. So my thought was like, how do we just partner and then do it together?
Yes.
How like why can I just not use the same strategies that we're learning and we're going to implement for social emotional learning and trauma informed to then address chronic absenteeism?
This is a systemic problem that needs a
Absolutely. Yep.
systemic solution. So I want everyone to take that in.
Yes.
Even though your lens is one student at a time,
Yep.
this has to be all hands on deck, including the community, the caregivers
Yes.
feeling welcome to be part of the conversation. The fascinating research I've been looking at is what is in. Please let me know if this is correct. But the research I just read was 1 in 4 students struggles with chronic absenteeism. That's crazy.
That's
Um,
crazy.
and then I'd also love for you to speak to what is the definition of being chronically absent? What does that mean?
Well, that's actually a great question, and that was part of like what we definitely partnered with attendance work. So attendance work defines chronic absenteeism from a school for a student when they miss 10% of the school year. So just missing 10%. Now the tricky part about chronic absenteeism, not the tricky, I will say the interesting part of chronic absenteeism is that when we're looking at chronic absenteeism, we're looking at excused absence, unexcused absence,
Ah,
and suspension. When
okay.
we're looking just at average daily attendance, which is what we as a district and a lot of districts used to focus before chronic absenteeism was presented to us, was we were only looking at unexcused absence, which is what caused truancy, right? So we were focusing very in a kind of punity approach. So chronic absenteeism, what it does is that it helps us look at attendance from a preventive and proactive approach. One of the things about attendance work has a beautiful graph that is just like imprinted in my head. And it's like they show how like the ADA of a school district looks amazing, the average daily attendance of the ADA. But then when they look at the chronic absenteeism, it was very high. And they were talking about how, like, when we look at only ADA and truancy, it really mapped a deeper problem, right?
Ah,
Because we're not looking at those students that they might be in school, but they're missing because of health reasons, because of social emotional, because mental health, because of different reasons that we know where they are. So we don't put an alert on them. We're not putting strategies to support them because we know where they are. Parents are calling. So I know where Naomi is. Why do I need to call her, right? Why do I need to check
wow.
on her? She will come when she comes. So looking at ADA only, you really focus on those students that we just don't know where they are.
That's
But
so
then
interesting.
it is because chronic absenteeism is really that preventive lane that really help us to dig deeper on the issue and the challenges, the barriers that the student have with
Ah.
coming to school.
So, Naomi, I'm hoping you can highlight for us then. You just spoke a little bit to the barriers that you see, as well as punitive approaches don't work. So, can you speak to just offer some examples of barriers from your teacher or days of working with immigrant students, as well as then move in, if you can, to the punitive approaches not working and what you're doing instead?
I think there's a few things that you need to consider. One, the level, because one of the things that we notice is that the elementary, middle school, and high school barriers are very different. Also, at least in our school, we have 43 campuses. Every school has a very different needs and challenges. I will say that overall, the most common one from the student level I will say from the student level, the biggest one was the student feeling connected to one adult. There was a lack of connectedness from our students. That was a big barrier. Uh, from the parent and the family, there was a big barrier in communication. And I'm not talking just about language. That is a barrier. I feel like our district had good things in place to support language. But it wasn't about language. It's like communicating the things that the family needs,
Ah,
right? We had a lot of in our district. We have 65 languages. We have translators, but we were really not paying attention about one the cultural needs, what education means to different cultures, what being in a classroom means to different cultures. So we were sending the message, but not the right message. So the parents were getting attendance, they get the attendance guidelines, but they were not understanding them. Now, when we look at a middle school and high school, whole different challenges, especially in the pandemic. Two things that we look because of the also the economic impact that the pandemic had. We have a lot of students that moved to the course for to the workforce, and now they're also providers in the family. So we have that, and also with a lot of our um, high school students, one of the challenges is that a lot of our migrant students, when they were coming to our schools, they were very honest and they were like, we're here to work and send money at home. We're not here to come to school. And they were not understanding why do I have to be in school? And so again, go back to that messaging of the students understanding the power that it is in education, that it's not just to check box you're in school, but what is really going to open for you in your future? And how do we
opportunities.
then opportunities? Absolutely. So for high school students, that was one of the biggest barriers that we had. Understanding, right? Um, that importance of education. So I think those are some of the top ones that we can think. Um, I can talk to you about for us as a district. The biggest barrier for us as a team was shifting, making that shift from like punitive to proactive. There is a mindset shift that have to happen that it has to start with literature. And as we talk about, this is a collective approach, but it's also means that from us as a district, it's not just teachers understanding. It's like also district leaders. It's like our superintendent, our cabinet, everyone understanding that we have to have that mindful share.
Yeah, those are really good examples, and then I would also say a word just came to mind for me, alongside punitive, the word judgment. And I have friends, and their children struggle with chronic absenteeism, and so I think I wanna just point out, getting to the why. Why
Yes, getting to the
what is
why.
the
Mhm.
obstacle for that individual child to get on the bus to school or to walk into that building? It is so individualized. We have to be so
Yes.
precise for each family, and that's why I adore the work you're doing because it is so tailored and and it honors the caregivers. It honors the entire family that's living this. It is so hard on caregivers as well to have a child that doesn't want to go to school. It is exhausting, it's draining, and so you've spoken to caregivers that may not necessarily understand the why for their child. There are also families that the caregivers know exactly why their child needs to go to school, and it feels impossible, especially for older kids, to get them to go. What advice would you have for them?
Try to get to the why. Try to talk to the family and talk to the student about what are the reasons. Now, depending on the why and what are some of the reasons, then we can connect them to the right resource. So, for example, we have students that they have PTSD, they have trauma, and there are triggers in school that
Yeah.
doesn't help them. And we are able to address those and provide support, but we won't know when we ask the student and we ask the parents, and we get to that problem. So to be transparent, it's a very individual situation.
Yeah.
What I will tell, at least what we tell our parents is that once we identify, then how can we connect you to resources to support? And sometimes it's in-school support. So sometimes that means that I need to connect you with a social worker in the school. sometimes it's outside support. So we have to partner with those resources that we have in the community. But I think the key is if a school district, a school support, is that is asking the why, getting to that issue, and then connecting them and creating a plan. And again, if we don't have the resources, then finding those resources in the community to provide the support that the student needs to feel be successful at school.
Yeah.
And that sometimes mean like adjusting schedule. We realize that we have a lot of our students that are coming from refugee camps and they have to get therapy and counseling services. And that was impacting the chronic absenteeism because they were using school hours. So one of the things that we did is that they come to school. So the student doesn't have to miss school and it's embedded, it's integrated on their schedule. So
Yeah.
they're still getting the services. There doesn't impact the chronic absenteeism and they're getting the services that they need, right?
Yeah.
So things like that, it's just again, it's a very one-on-one situation, but those are things that we can do as a school district to support once we know the why. But again, getting to the why.
It's the why, and also I just had a conversation with a caregiver, and the high school did something for her son that was so impactful. It was a beautiful scenario. You have to know the why, though. Again, we're gonna keep going back to that. So, once you know the why, you can move mountains in a really positive way, and it has to be both the school district being curious as well as the caregiver. So, the caregiver cannot get to the why if they feel like the school is judging them, if they feel like this school is, looking down on them. So it took a really special conversation to happen of realizing teenagers need a lot of sleep. Let's face it, the school districts that start too early, there is copious amounts of research around later start times the older kids get. But
Okay.
what this caregiver realized is, my child has 2 study halls throughout the day. Couldn't we flip the schedule and start the day with the 2 study halls and then switch the classes to be later in the day? Same class, different section. And so now the student's day begins at 10 AM, where it was beginning at 8 AM before, and just taking those study halls, moving them to the beginning of the day. That student has not missed a day of school since. It's just giving that extra time
Yep.
to roll in slowly. It was so individualized and yet honoring of the students' needs, of the caregivers' needs. They knew what was going on. So I find that just incredible. What resources have you also connected caregivers with that we can offer listeners?
Absolutely. So, for for elementary, again, depending on the level, for elementary, the biggest resource that has helped for us, for parents, has been parent classes. Actually, for middle school and high school too. So
Same.
we partner with an organization that provide parent classes for students that have either special challenges that parents just don't know how to handle, and this can be medical, like this can be discipline, this can be anything. I think there's a very powerful when you give the parents the resources. It happens very frequent in middle school and high school that the parents are like, he doesn't want to come to school. I don't know what to do. I don't know. But let's help you. Let's help you create a plan. Like we have parents that have come and say, no one has told me how to be a parent. No one has given me,
There's no
I don't,
magical wand. There's no book.
right? It's like, and they come and say, "No, I don't have support. I don't
Yeah.
have anyone to go to." Well, like let's be that support. Let's connect them to someone that can help them navigate through difficult situations and understand like what is really happening. Like is it a behavior issue? What are some of the strategies that work at home that we can then bring at school, and then we can collaborate and partner together on those strategies, right? So I think that parent support for us as a district, again, and go back to that school connectedness that Dr. Bob shares a lot, is that we have to work very hard to create those spaces that parents feel comfortable to enter, come, and have those conversations. Like you said,
Yeah.
making sure the parents don't feel judged, that parents don't feel, that we're telling them you're a bad parent, that we're not pointing them out, but we want to be partners, that we want to collaborate on the student success, both academic, but also social emotional, right? So for us had been creating those spaces where parents were welcome. So one of the things our district did recently is that we opened the welcome center at the district office that if you don't feel comfortable to go to school, come to us. We'll figure it out. We'll support you. Let's have a conversation. What are some of your challenges? But then we can have again conversations and connect you again for specific resources depending on the situation. But
I
I
love
think
it.
as a district, creating those spaces and in our schools too, creating those spaces. So we've had to do a lot of training around being welcome and around climate and
Yeah.
culture, making sure that what does that look like for parents so they can come in school and feel like I can sit down and have a conversation and figure it out. That the school is a partner, it's a supporter
Yeah.
to then figure it out. It's like you say, you have this mom that's like, I don't know what to do. He doesn't want to go to school. But let's have a conversation. Let's talk to an expert
Yeah.
that can walk us through the science. Does he have routines at home? You know, making routines at home is key for a student when it comes to attendance. You don't have routines, let's help you make your routine for your kid.
It's also the why when it comes to assignments and making the tools accessible. Where I live, they use, Canvas as a communication tool, and the caregivers can be observers on their students' accounts, and it offers a myriad of tools, but it is a responsibility of the caregiver to a degree to check in,
Yep.
and I think part of the release, especially in middle school world, the hot mess of middle school as a caregiver is letting go and releasing
Yeah.
responsibility because the students have to step up. They have to own their learning journey. And so it's I think that conversation between a caregiver and their child to say, when are we checking in with each other to make sure you're on point? Because what often happens with chronic absenteeism I see is that kids get so far behind academically,
Mhm.
it's a big dark hole that they feel like they cannot get out of. What have you experienced with that?
And there's tons of research about mentoring programs and how that can be successful for the academic success. For us, it has been very critical to embrace that mentoring program and making sure that the students are empowered by other students, right? That they have incentive. A lot of the things that I'm able to move is because the parent voice is so strong.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like sometimes parents realize that, right? But when I have the parent voice, then I can say, well, this is what the parents are saying. This is what they need. When the parents organize and share and
Yeah.
talk about challenges and how, like, hey, the schedule is not working, I can't change that. But if the parents are talking about it, organize it, come to the board meetings, they share about that, they're going to look at it.
They'll listen.
They're,
Yeah.
they'll listen.
Yeah.
You know, there
Yeah.
is so much power in that parent voice. So one of the things that our welcoming center is helping is that empowering parents to have a voice and come and share, making sure that the parents know that they know there is power in their voice and empowering them to come and talk
Speak.
to us and speak up and challenge because really they are the one who know what's best for the kid. They know their kids better than we do.
They
And
do.
we can come here and solution. And this comes also to that individualized approach that not every student is the same. So it helps us understand that if we're going to do something, we need to look at different learning
Yeah.
ways. We have to look at different ways the students learn and the student adapt. And it helps us to stay on track as a district. So I think it's very powerful to just empower parents and have them share the voice and help us create strategies that really work for them
Yeah.
and resources that really work for them. So I know that's a little bit off of what you asked,
It's
but
not. It's not. It's so helpful, and you just gave me a perfect segue because I would be neglectful if I didn't ask you about the attendance dashboard you created, because it allowed you to not only see the individual student patterns, but bigger trends, district
yeah.
trends, school-based trends, so please speak to that.
And I think it goes back. We as a district, again, we were only looking at ADA.
Yeah.
And I told you, I still remember when they showed that graph of like how the ADA can be great and then chronic absenteeism. I was like, what did that look like for a district? And we looked at it and it was, yeah, We have a lot of schools that are all over building. We're really like, oh, our attendance is great. We have 92%, we have 95. We're so good. But then the chronic absenteeism was like over 30%,
That's crazy.
40%. And I was like, well, let's look at that. So first, just at the overview level, it really helped with like, well, this and to identify which schools we really needed to focus and support. Because yes, they're in their average daily attendance, the ARDA was great, but a lot of their students that were there, they're really not there. They're missing a lot of school. So that was the biggest thing. It helped us identify as a district level. It helped us identify which school needed extra support. So what we did is that then we created dashboard for each one of their schools. And we starting to we were using the Atlas protocol to look at the data. So based on the Atlas protocol, with that social, emotional, and trauma informed lens, we were looking at like, okay, what's missing from the data, right? What's missing? We're missing when we look at by ethnicity and race. We're missing when we're looking at by language, right? I told you we have six or like, oh, like around 65 languages in our district,
Yeah.
but we didn't have a way to look at it by language, so let's look at that. Let's look at what are the communities that are missing this information. Started looking something as simple as by grade, by classroom. So we had our high schools. We started a new schedule, but not every high school was following the same schedule. So that gave us an opportunity. Let's look at that. Let's look at the chronic absenteeism, and that helped us actually move forward
That's
to
so
the
interesting.
right schedule. Yeah, the findings were surprising and a little bit alarming to be transparent, but it's good. Sometimes, like, and I feel like this is something that I'm heading from a tennis verse says this a lot. She says like bad data, it doesn't mean that we like it's not a threat for us. It's a tool, it's a power.
Yeah.
When we understand of data,
When you
we
know.
really exactly when we know, then you can look at what are really the strategies that we need to put in place. As the district administrator, one of the things that for me was very powerful was that okay, not every school have the same like the data is not the same at every school. So that means that I can create a one strategy fits all. I need to then go deeper to each school and look at what are their specific needs and then create strategies. So the data was really being just such a powerful tool.
Yeah.
And that's when then we moved to create those attendance teams. So then, okay, after an attendance team in your specific school, let's look at the data. What is the data telling you? What is really telling us? What are some of the groups that need extra support? And then how can we take those strategies that we have in place and adapt them to really address the need of your school? And then we're starting to see a movement in the chronic absenteeism because we're not having one strategy fit all because we can't do it.
We
We
can't.
talked about every student is different, well, district level, every school is different, right? So looking at that, again, looking at the data, sometimes it scares us. Sometimes I know when I was talking to the principal, they're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," or data, and I'm like, "No, don't apologize. This is the tool. This is really something that's going to help us. So let's not be afraid of looking at data. Let's actually take advantage of deep dive on that data and what it's telling us about, especially about what are really the groups in our school that are missing out, that are really struggling. Because then we go to the why, and then we can create strategies that are really effective
So
to
good.
that specific school.
Naomi, you are a gift to the world of education. It's
You're
just
so
you
sweet.
offer hope. And what I mean by that is it's you are so proactive, you are so precise and truly caring. You care. And I think, in this world where we are right now, we need the people like you that care deeply for children and also for their families, for the caregivers,
Yes.
for the teachers, like
Yes.
every layer.
As a whole.
It's a whole, it's that
Yeah.
whole approach. And I saw you move your hands because it's the multi-layered approach.
Yeah.
There's so much to be said around data feeling scary and being defined by data where you're flipping the script. You're like, nope, we've got to know. Let's just put it
Yeah.
all the cards, all the complexities out on the table and then let's have some conversations and make a plan to move forward. And I think what people don't realize is when you know, even if it's awful, awful news, it is actually it's this sense of relief because you
Absolutely.
can never make a realistic plan if you don't know what you're actually dealing with. So,
Absolutely.
you are just a beacon of hope as far as I'm concerned,
You're
and
so sweet.
Thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation. You're amazing.
No, absolutely, absolutely. But you're right. Like I think when going back to looking at the students like needs and the student, um, we really, really need to like deep dive on that data and understand um one strategy doesn't fit all,
No.
right? And we have those big challenges, and that's what I'm like always the question of like, what are your biggest challenges? It's so hard because
Yeah.
I can tell you the top one, but every family is going through something so different.
Yep.
Every student has different need. And I think what we need to look is like as a district, as a building, continue to create those spaces that the families and students feel
Safe.
safe and welcome to come and have this conversation so we can partner and find solution to those specific challenges that they're facing is so key.
And I will include all of the research, the researchers you mentioned. I will include
Yes.
links to the article that uplifts your work.
Yes.
And just and also I'll put in any of the contact information you want shared and so people can get in touch to continue to pick your brain because you're an endless
Yes.
resource. So
Absolutely.
you're amazing. Thank you so much. Take
No, thank
care.
you for having me. Bye
Yeah.
bye.
Bye. Solutions Coaching and Teaching Strategies is created, produced, and edited by me, Olivia Wall. Thank you to my older son Benjamin, who created the music playing in the background. You can follow and listen to Solutions wherever you get your podcasts, or subscribe to never miss an episode and watch on YouTube. Thank you to my guest, Naomi Tolentino Miranda, for sharing how we can shift from punitive to proactive and positive approaches when addressing chronic absenteeism. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Send me an email at solutionspodcast@gmail.com. Let me know what resonated most from my conversation with Naomi. And tune in every Monday for the best research-backed coaching and teaching strategies you can apply right away to better the lives of the children in your care. Stay tuned for my bonus episodes every Friday, where I'll reflect and share connections to what I learned from the guests that week. See you then.